Ow! The howls of coyotes, which I'm very used to, and wolves, which I'm a little bit used to, are hard to ignore. And the name Garmr, which is given to the canine in hell, hell with one L, the Norse afterlife for most people, probably just means the howler. Now, not everyone agrees, but I would say 98% sure that Garmr, being a canine associated with the dead and being a canine who fights the gods at Ragnarok, is actually the same canine as Fenrir, and that Snorri Sturluson in his Prose Edda is confused about poetic sources like Völuspá that use multiple names for Fenrir, and he thinks these are different canines when they're in fact the same. But and by the way, that's not like some unusual thing. All of the gods and other mythological beings have multiple names. So for Snorri to get confused, remember he is a secondary source. He's trying to interpret the same poems we are. I'm not saying anything about him being a bad source or anything like that. He's working with the same materials we are, trying to make sense of them. But while Garmr is not that hard of a word to figure out an etymology for, the normal name for Fenrir is pretty tough. So we see him named both Fenrir and Fenrisulfr. This may remind you a little bit of how the tree is called both Yggdrasil and Yggdrasil's Askr. So both Yggdrasil and the ash tree of Yggdrasil. Now, I think that Anatoly Lieberman did a really interesting job explaining this as Yggdrasil, Terrifier horse, is actually an old name for Odin and or Sleipnir, and that tree is therefore his. But Fenrisulfr, that makes it look like, okay, it's the wolf, Ulfr, of Fenrir, so then who is Fenrir? Could be an old name for Loki, but we can't really explain this because we can't figure out what Fenrir means. That fen part looks kind of like English fen, Old Norse fen, meaning swamp, but rir is not some suffix, right? You see rir in some names, like Vidrir, a name of Odin, but that's because the root at the end has an R in it, right? That's feather maker, storm maker, something like that for Odin. So when people say this is the dweller in the swamps, like that doesn't actually go together. We can't quite figure out what that rir is. There's an explanation by Koch from 100 years ago that says this is Fenrisulfr, the swamp grass wolf, which is clever but pretty unprovable. Why does he need to be from a swamp? This name is actually a big mystery.